right. So welcome everyone to our first ever live Q&A. So happy and excited to do it.
Yeah.
So my main goal today is to have more than just my mom watching. Same for you?
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, more than my mom and my wife.
Yeah,
I think I could get 2 views right there.
there we go. We got it. All right, so my name is Laurie Groh, for those of you that don't know me. Co-owner at Shoreside Therapies. Also a therapist there. And we're talking today with Garrett Wilk, and we want to talk a little bit about anxiety. Probably not going to get to OCD today. We're talking about anxiety and COVID-19 and going through a couple questions today. We talked a little bit about this today, and we thought we would shorten it up. So we'll probably just go through a few questions and hopefully do this again in a week or two.
Yeah.
We're up for it? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So Garrett, before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe in a couple sentences, just a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I just started Shoreside Therapies. So far love it. I'm working to build up a caseload, so I'm accepting new patients right now. But I worked at Rogers for the last 5 years and did some case management before that. But while at Rogers, for the last 2.5 years, I specialized in OCD and anxiety disorders. So like social anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder. And then prior to that, I had worked on inpatient, and I also worked treating mood disorders. And in treating mood disorders, also treated a lot of personality disorders. So those are sort of my areas of specialty, but I would say like anxiety is probably the big specialty. And I feel like, that was one reason we wanted to do the Q&A, is to try to put something out there for people who are struggling with COVID and maybe heightened anxiety in a period of a lot of uncertainty. And like Laurie said earlier, we were talking like a half an hour ago and realized, hey, neither of us watches anything that's a half hour on Facebook.
Yeah.
So why would we do a half hour thing?
Yeah.
So we decided to shorten it, and if people really like it, we want to do more of them, and we're open to feedback for what's helpful. So
Yeah. And so we will be accepting questions via Facebook, and if afterwards, you can always look at this video. You can still share it with other people. If there's questions afterwards, you can still add it in the comments, and then next time we'll answer some more.
Or feel free to reach out with questions too, or if you're saying like, hey, maybe I want to do therapy with Garrett. Hey, do you treat this sort of thing, or is this something that would be helpful to work on in therapy? That's something that people can easily reach out to me with, and I can either direct you toward the right place, or hopefully I'd be able to help you with it. So
yeah, that sounds good. All right. So obviously anxiety is at the forefront right now. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, especially with things opening up right now. A lot of businesses opening up, a lot of people are starting to engage a little bit more with people around them. And I guess one of the questions that comes up a lot is, how do people handle the anxiety with this new change of the opening up and sort of leaving the house? I mean, it's been a couple weeks now where people are sort of given the okay to leave. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this has been coming up with my patients quite a bit, and what I've really focused on is, it's natural to feel anxiety about this, right? Because we're being told different things from different sources. So I think one thing I recommend is trying to use like the CDC as your main basis. And to be honest, even though we're doing this on Facebook, I wouldn't get your primary information off of Facebook. So like, everything I say is I'm not going to tell you what to do to stay safe during COVID. Go to the CDC for that.
Yeah.
But I think that the other piece too is there's some basic anxiety coping skills that I can teach people. The first one is mental reframing, right? So that means sort of taking a situation, and it's easy to say, oh man, this really sucks. My life is completely disrupted by this. I'm worried about my job. And you can focus on those things, or you can try to focus on how many of us have all said, oh, if I only had more time, then
Yeah.
I would do X, Y, or Z around my house, or I would have X, Y, or Z hobbies, you know? And so refocusing on this is an opportunity actually. Like this is a different opportunity for a lot of things that I haven't gotten to do. Or this is an opportunity for me to be really creative with my kids and figure out some fun activities that they've been marked in my Pinterest for how long, and I've never
Yeah.
gotten to actually
Yeah.
do them.
Yep.
And along the same thing, I think there's another idea of practicing gratitude,
Hmm.
practicing a piece of like, hey, you know what? Like, so there's some of us that it may almost feel silly to wear a mask because I don't know, like, I personally don't know anyone that actually has gotten COVID. But at
Hmm.
the same time, I think that's an area just to be really grateful and to say, wow, I know there are over 100,000 people out there who've died from this, and over 1 million people that have almost 2 million people, I think, that have actually contracted this. I'm really grateful that this hasn't impacted my life. I'm grateful for these, unique opportunities that have come up.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's sort
and the
of
last,
Garrett. So
oh,
Garrett, with that, I don't mean to cut you off.
no,
So there's this reframing that would be helpful. So instead of maybe focusing in on, all of the restrictions, instead focusing in on what this might open up. And I know
right.
for me and our family, I always dreamed of doing family hikes and just
Yeah,
not happening because there's all these different sports and all this different stuff that we got them put into. And so that's been something I know on our end that's been really fun and really cool, and putting painted rocks out for people and, doing something a
oh,
little
that's cool.
different. Um,
Yeah.
and making bagels. That was another thing, one of my
Oh,
big
that's
things I
cool.
did that I've never done. So I think that is a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I know from myself, like I enjoy doing woodworking, and I'm building a desk for my office actually,
Oh
which
my God.
I did not have time to do. And so it's a pretty simple desk. It's nothing
Okay.
too fancy, but yeah, I'm building a desk for my office. And I know one of my other friends is learning how to make like sourdough bread, and that's like
Yeah.
been the thing that he's been focused on. So those are some good examples. I love
Yeah.
the example of going for hikes, because like a hike is something you can do with a pretty low risk level,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
outside, you're not going to be close to other people like that. I love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah. And I'll put in an order for a new desk as well, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah.
Make me one.
Yeah, I'll be making desks for the whole office. Yeah. We'll see. Well, you can see how this first one goes, and you can
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah. Let's wait on that
Yeah,
for
let's
a
wait
little
until we try this other one out.
bit.
Yeah. Well, so the last one that I had sort of too, and this is like the last one I had to give you guys. I mean, I have a whole list of other ones I could give you, but the last, I want to keep it kind of simple here,
Mhm.
is respiratory control. So,
Yeah.
and I think this is one of the most like portable techniques that people can use. And really what it is it's focusing on your breathing and being aware of it. And usually what I have people do is an inhale for 3, a pause for, a count of 1, and then an exhale for a count of 3. There are a ton of other ways to do respiratory control, but I mean, that's what I would teach at Rogers for all my OCD anxiety patients. And it is well researched, well documented as being a great way to reduce anxiety. So if you find yourself maybe out and about and feeling anxious about COVID, whatever else, take a second, do some respiratory control, and then try to reassess like, okay, is this a situation that really is risky for me
Yeah.
or for the people around me? Or maybe I'm actually okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the breathing technique because you take it wherever you go, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
different ones. So if one of them doesn't quite feel right, I know the one where you have like this longer exhale and you're supposed to count to 7. I always let people know, you don't have to force it to 7. You don't want to like
Yeah.
pass out.
Yeah.
Opposite.
100%.
But finding one
Yep.
that is actually going to work for you. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a great
Well,
idea.
and I don't know if you use it, Laurie, but I use it like every day. I mean, I used it before I did this. I just used some respiratory control to reduce my anxiety, to do a Facebook Live thing. It's something that I use every day.
Yep. Yep. I did a little movement beforehand and some breathing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
So Garrett, so next question, we'll move right along. So this is another issue that I've noticed a lot with my clients, a lot with friends and family, is how to handle a scenario where a friend or family member is either doing different precautions than you are, or they have different opinions on what they should be doing than you do. Sometimes it's not too much of a difference, but sometimes it's night and day. Somebody that's not doing any sort of precautions versus someone that's very restrictive. How would somebody handle a relationship where that comes up?
Yeah. And that's another one that's been coming up a lot in my practice and just in my personal life where, like, for example, I've had friends who are more or less comfortable with this. And so I think the biggest part about this is you want to accept and validate other people's emotions about this, right? They're going to feel the way they feel. And me trying to tell them that they shouldn't feel the way they feel is, I've never personally seen that work for me to tell someone, oh, you should just be less scared. That just makes people angry.
Right. Yeah.
So validate the other person's emotion. And so if you're inviting someone to do something, I think that means probably giving them an option out. So that would be saying like, hey, are you comfortable doing this? Here's who else might be coming.
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? And a lot of times too, it might be also, people might ask you like, are we wearing masks? Are we not wearing masks? And I think people have different comfort levels with that, right? Like for a while, there were times where I had friends who maybe were less comfortable because I was working at Rogers for a while, still seeing people in person because I was an essential worker, So it made sense to me that some people maybe weren't comfortable being around me because of that.
Yeah.
I think the biggest piece about this is just respecting other people's emotions. And it may feel silly, but, and for some people, some people may think, oh, like, I don't have to wear a mask, this whole thing's over. But, I think for a lot of people too, though, the wearing a mask is just like a level of respect of like, hey, this makes other people comfortable around me too. Like maybe I'm not worried. Like I'm 31. I know that probably nothing bad is going to happen to me. Like I'm healthy. I'm going to be okay. But then I might worry about being around my parents or other people who are older,
Right.
So, I think being kind and thoughtful about your responses to other people and trying to accept that I may not know how someone else feels. And it may be someone that I'd be totally surprised about.
Mm-hmm.
I also have to accept it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, or somebody that you might not realize has some underlying health issues, where
True.
where they're younger, and that you might have somebody could have some judgments upon that, but that they might have to be extra careful during this time. And you're right, respecting other people's viewpoints and really understanding that doesn't have anything to do with yourself. It has to do with what's going to work for them and not personalizing it,
Yeah, because I know I've seen people who, are in their car alone wearing masks and gloves and really wearing a lot of protective gear, but I don't really know what's going on for them. Maybe they just had heart surgery or something and they're really afraid because if they catch this, they're probably, they're in a whole different world than I am, even if they look to be about my age,
Yeah.
I think it's validating that we just don't know what's going on for other people, or maybe they're the primary caregiver for somebody, and we throw out these things thinking, maybe I know that may not be likely, but it's possible. So we try to be thoughtful and kind to other people around us, because I think, I think the other part too is that we have to accept we don't know what other people are doing. I can go to the grocery store and I don't know if other people are taking precautions like I'm taking,
Yeah.
So for someone who's at higher risk or knows someone who's at higher risk, I think just trying to accept like, hey, there's probably a reason they're acting the way they're acting, and I'm just going to assume that it's a good reason.
Yeah. And that goes back to that respect and trusting other people. I think that part's important.
Well, I think if you're someone who is more anxious, or you have an underlying condition, or you're just anxious for the sake of, I really don't want to spread this, or I really can't get this, I would try to work to accept that part of you. And, within reason, it can become, I am certainly working with people who their anxiety is maybe too high about it too. And we're working on that.
Yeah.
But accept that that's your, what your comfort level is. And then, you can be assertive about that with other people around you too, and saying like, hey, you know what, I'd be more comfortable if it were, 4 people versus 8 people.
Right. Yeah, I think that other piece of being assertive and getting comfortable with standing up for, your own safety. I think that's a great skill to have, and it's going to move across the board as far as not just right now, but learning that skill in everyday life is so important.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I
All
definitely
right.
think so.
So Garrett, we made it to 15 minutes.
We already made 15 minutes, and that went pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. I could talk to you
Yeah.
for hours, right? So that's great.
Yeah, we
Great.
should keep doing this. So
Yeah.
I think we should call it for today. And then,
Yeah.
you know, if people have questions, feel free to reach out. And then I think we might plan to just do another one of these. And
Yeah.
you know, if people have questions or something else that you want to be covered, feel free to ask a question, and we can do another one of these, or you can call us and set up an appointment, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And what we can do is also put down some contact information right even on this thread. I mean, you
Oh,
can
that's a
see
good
it right
idea.
on Shoreside's Facebook or Shoreside's website. But just for easy access, we can put your email right down there so people can contact you, can contact
Yeah,
me, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
awesome.
All right. Well, thanks again, Garrett.
Yeah, thanks, Laurie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun. All right. We'll talk
Yeah,
to you soon.
yeah. Later.
Bye.
Bye.